What is up, YouTube? Dottz Gaming here, and I am so proud to bring you guys the remake of my complete beginner guide updated for Morrowind. I created this guide about a year ago originally because there was nothing else like this on YouTube or frankly anywhere on the internet, and it was something that I felt that I needed not only as a new player back then, but I felt that it was something the community could benefit from. Due to that success of the video, I was able to flawlessly switch from being a World of Warcraft YouTuber to being an Elder Scrolls Online YouTuber. And then as I've been creating more and more beginner guides, I've been getting a lot of people asking me, when are you ever, if ever, going to remake this guide, especially with Morrowind coming out? And the answer to that is right here today. So this guide is now updated to include all of the changes to the game and how things have kind of stood the test of time. And this is the table of contents. This will be in the description below, completely timestamped. So if there's only a specific part of the video that you need to watch, you can just click the timestamp and fast forward to that part of the video. In addition, if this is the first video of mine that you are seeing, I highly recommend, I will also link in the description below, the playlist to all of my Elder Scrolls Online beginner guides. A lot of the other videos I have delve into these topics much deeper. This video is going to serve as just an introduction to all of the topics in the game, but for a more in-depth look, I have more other specific videos that you could watch to get a deeper look into some of these specific topics. So enough of me just blabbering on about the intro. Let's get the video started. So when it comes to purchasing Elder Scrolls Online, you want to purchase the game for whatever platform you're playing on. So if you plan on playing this on your computer, you obviously want to buy the PC Mac version. If you want to play it on PlayStation 4, obviously PS4, and Xbox One, buy the Xbox One version. Now, the way this works is there are mega servers for Elder Scrolls Online. So, for example, if you are going to be playing on the North American servers, all the Xbox One people are on a server, then all the PS4 people are on a different server, then all the PC Mac people are on a different server, and then completely separate are EU versions of all of those servers. There is no cross-server technology at this time, so Xbox One players can't play with PS4 players, can't play with PC Mac players. Everyone is separated on their own mega server. Now, with at the time of recording this, technically speaking, Morrowind still needs to be pre-ordered for another 4 days, as you can see on the date below. But if you want to buy the... I don't know if this will still be out by the time the video is uploaded, but just in case, I'll go over both the Morrowind purchasing and the regular purchasing. So if you want to buy just the regular standard Elder Scrolls Online, you can just get the standard edition. You can get it for any of the different platforms, and it just includes the base Elder Scrolls Online game. If you want to get all of the expansion packs, all right, not Morrowind, but all of the DLC that comes with it. So I believe it is Orsinium, Dark Brotherhood, Thieves Guild, and Imperial City. You would get the Gold Edition. And honestly, I highly recommend the Gold Edition if you really plan on playing this game. It's a really good bang for your buck. And if you get the Standard Edition and then decide later on, hey, I want to buy all of these DLC, you're going to have to either subscribe to ESO Plus, or you're gonna have to buy them all out of pocket, which, trust me, costs a lot in terms of crowns. I had to bite the bullet on that before I became an ESO Plus member, and I do regret it. But that is, you know, it is what it is. Now, if you want to, you know, say, I want to go straight to Morrowind, you know I'm gonna be playing this game and I want Morrowind, you can go and purchase Morrowind, and you have a couple different options. If you are a returning player who already has the base game, okay, you're going to want to go for one of the upgrades. So there are different upgrades. You can go for the Morrowind upgrade, or you can go for the Digital Collector's Edition upgrade. And if you're buying, you know, you want to buy the whole kit and caboodle, you want to buy base Elder Scrolls Online and Morrowind at the same time, you're either going to get the Standard Edition, the Digital Collector's Edition, or the Collector's Edition, and like I said, that will include both Morrowind and regular Elder Scrolls Online. Now, moving on to the buy-to-play model, once you have this, that's it. There are no monthly fees unless you want to become an Elder Scrolls Online Plus member, which I will go into in the next section when I discuss some of the expansions and DLC that have come out. But if you don't want to, if you're just, you know, I want to buy this game and I just want to play it, you don't have a monthly fee, and thankfully, it's not pay to win. It is not pay to win, so you are not losing out on a crap ton of stuff if you do not subscribe to ESO Plus. Now, when it comes to the Crown Store, the Crown Store has a lot of different things you could buy. Crowns are the in-game microtransaction currency, and you could buy a whole bunch of different stuff. You could buy costumes, you could buy stuff to augment your crafting abilities, you can buy in-game player housing, mounts, pets, outfits to wear, upgrades to your account, and other utility things such as a traveling merchant or a traveling banker. Now, none of this stuff is absolutely mandatory to have. None of this is mandatory, okay? What I would recommend, though, if you do decide, I want to buy crowns, I would recommend not spending money on crown crates. Crown crates are this kind of random system where you buy a whole bunch of crates and you can open the crate, and inside the crate is a whole bunch of random loot. Personally, for me, when I spend my money on something, I don't like to gamble. I want to be like, I'm spending my money and purchasing this. So I would recommend not sinking your money into that. My personal favorites are account upgrades, you know, such as the Adventurer Pack that will allow you to play any race on any faction. The Imperial Edition upgrade is really, really good. You get access to the Imperial race. Again, some of this race stuff I will go over later on in the video. But this is a quality upgrade, especially because it does come with a horse, an in-game pet, and some other stuff. And the 4 DLC Mega Pack, again, you're going to have to shell out the cash for this if you don't want to become an ESO Plus member, nor if you get the Gold Edition. But if you want to buy the DLC in any capacity, I would recommend just going straight for the Gold Edition. But that's just some examples of stuff you can buy in the Crown Store. Again, I would just stay away from the Crown Crates, but otherwise, buy whatever pleases you. This section is going to cover expansions, downloadable content, and an ESO Plus membership. So I'm going to start with DLC and ESO Plus and end with expansions last, actually. So there are a whole bunch of DLC that has been released for Elder Scrolls Online. I'm going to tell you which ones are my favorite and a little bit about each one so that you can decide which ones you want. Now, if you are an ESO Plus member, so that is if you pay, you know, ZOS a monthly fee in order to get some extra bonuses, you also have access to all of the DLC at once. So do not purchase the DLC individually if you plan on being an ESO Plus member. Or if you do want access to all the DLC without being an ESO Plus member, or without shelling out the money for all of them individually, buying the Gold Edition would be a good idea. But if you kind of want a little preview about what they're all about first before you decide, I will go over those right now. Now, the Dark Brotherhood is an Assassin's Guild. It has always been my favorite in all of the test games. I think it is so much fun. It's just all about sneaking and subterfuge and murdering, and you get access to a lot, like a really awesome quest line, a new zone, the Blade of Woe passive, which allows you to one-shot enemies if you sneak up behind them. It's honestly just a lot of fun, and I would highly recommend it. You next have Imperial City, so you get access to the Imperial City in the center of Cyrodiil. It offers some PvP and PvE gameplay, so if you have an affinity to one of those, you will still find content in Imperial City. It is I personally haven't done a lot with it yet, but I do want to get into it very soon. Orsinium has been heralded as one of the better DLCs. I have heard, again, this is one I want to crack into next, I have heard that the questline in Orsinium is really, really fun, and it takes you to the Orc homeland so you can learn all about them, and again, another good one. Shadow of the Hist, as you can see, I didn't purchase it individually, but because I am a member of ESO Plus, I do have access to it. It just simply gives you access to 2 new dungeons. And then finally, there is the Thieves Guild DLC, which again gives you access to another zone, just like the Orsinium. They all give you access to another zone, but this gives you access to Hugh's Bane, which is the Thieves Guild zone. I personally have been very meh on the Thieves Guild. I know some people have really liked it, but I have not been a fan for the way it was kind of played out in ESO. I kind of am partial to the way it was in the single-player games, but overall, it is not bad. Do I think it's worth it to buy the Gold Edition for this? I absolutely do, because the Dark Brotherhood, Orsinium, and Imperial City are very, very good, and you also do get the Thieves Guild. Again, this is just me, my opinion on it. But if you're like Dottz Gaming, I don't want to spend the money for the Gold Edition, I don't want to upgrade, I just want the base game, and maybe I'll buy a DLC, I would recommend the Dark Brotherhood probably the most, Orsinium second, Imperial City third, and then Thieves Guild fourth. But again, and then Shadow of the Hist if you want access to these dungeons. But again, that is just my personal opinion. I do think they are all pretty much worth buying, though, if you ask me, because you do get access to some cool zones, more sky shards, and other stuff. In terms of an ESO Plus membership, You get a lot of bonuses, nothing game-breaking, but a lot of bonuses for being an ESO Plus member. The first thing is that you get all DLC quest starters available to you, so you don't have to buy the DLC individually. You also get crowns every single time your subscription renews. So not only do you get access to all of these bonuses, but you get the corresponding amount of crowns that is respective to the amount of money you're paying. So, you know, obviously the more money that you shell out every time that your membership renews, whether it's $15, $41, or I think it's 70-something bucks, depending on how long you're renewing for. So I think it's 1 month, 3 month, 6 month. You get crowns that correspond to that amount. You also get access to the almighty craft bag. So new players, the craft bag is honestly one of the big perks of ESO Plus and is kind of one of the reasons I got it. The craft bag basically puts all of your crafting materials in an unlimited bag that you have access to at any time. And you're going to learn very quickly that the amount of crafting materials you have racks up fast. So this is just something to consider. If you never really want to be a crafter, then maybe this isn't for you. But if you think I might want to craft in this game, you know, I really like that aspect, and ESO's crafting system is very good, I would recommend considering at the very least checking out the craft bag. You also have access to costume dyeing, so like that, what I'm wearing right now is currently a costume, and I could dye it and change it different colors. You also in this game could change your armor to different colors, but you cannot dye and change the color of costumes, which are predetermined outfits, unless you have ESO Plus. You also get double the amount of allowable furnishing and collectibles inside your player house. You get double bank space, which changed already since my ESO Plus video, and you get a 10% bonus to experience gain, crafting inspiration, trait research, and gold acquisition. So these are the perks that you do get from ESO Plus. And then in terms of expansions, currently only the Morrowind expansion is out. So that is a completely new continent in the game. It's got a whole new quest line. It's got a new class that comes along with it. It has Battlegrounds, which is a small-scale PvP content, 4v4v4, and is definitely worth looking into if you plan on playing ESO for the long haul. You do not get access to Vardenfell and Morrowind. If you're an ESO Plus member, you have to buy it separately. Being an access to ESO Plus gives you all access to the DLC. The expansion, like Morrowind, is completely separate. Alrighty, so now I'm going to go over the different races and the different factions in Elder Scrolls Online. So this game is a tri-faction game. There is the Daggerfall Covenant, the Aldmeri Dominion, and the Ebonheart Pact. The Daggerfall Covenant is made up of the Bretons, the Orcs, and the Redguard. The Aldmeri Dominion is made up of the High Elves, the Wood Elves, and the Khajiit. And then the Ebonheart Pact is made up of the Argonians, the Dark Elves, and the Nords. And then what you could play on any faction if you got the Imperial upgrade is Imperials. Imperials can play on any faction that you want. And I'm sure you're noticing I'm able to change my faction without my race changing, and that is because I do have the Adventurer Pack, because currently my character is a High Elf on the Daggerfall Covenant, and without that upgrade I would not be able to do that. Now, I know a lot of new players, one of the biggest concerns with them when they see factions is, will I be able to play with my friends? And the answer to that is absolutely. With one of the previous iterations of Elder Scrolls Online, they did an update that they called One Tamriel. And basically what One Tamriel did was that it allowed any faction, any level, to play together in any zone. So basically your character scales to all the zones around you. So it made Elder Scrolls Online a very sandboxy type of game. You can basically go wherever you want and do whatever you want whenever you want, being that you scale to the world around you. So for example, if your friend is level 48 and you just started, you guys can still play together because you guys are both scaled to the world around you. Obviously, he's going to be a bit stronger because he has more abilities, more stats, better gear, and stuff like that. But you will still be able to, you know, hold your own and actually play with your friend, which is awesome. Especially, too, if he's on a different faction. There are no faction restrictions with playing with your friends anymore. Dungeons, battlegrounds, everything is completely factionless except for Cyrodiil PvP, which is the faction-based PvP in the game. It's like an open-world PvP zone. That is really the only time that factions matter. Otherwise, there really isn't much of an effect. Next, we are going to talk about all of the different classes in Elder Scrolls Online. But before I touch on any of them, I first want to say any class can fit any role. So if I were you, a new player starting, I would highly recommend just picking whichever class looks coolest to you. A Templar, okay, is for example your stereotypical paladin or priest. Your Templar does not have to be a healer. You can have a damage dealing Templar, while at the same time you have someone like your sorcerer who focuses around conjuring Daedra and using shock magic and lightning and stuff. But that doesn't mean you have to be a mage. You can be a tank sorcerer. You could even be a healing sorcerer. Any of the classes can fit any of the roles, use any of the armor, and any of the weapons. So you want to just pick the class whose theme appeals to you the most, because every class, the uniqueness in the classes comes from the way they go about things, and every class really does have its own flavor. But Wardens are your nature-using, ice magic-wielding, pet-taming new class in the game. So if that's the type of thing that interests you, the Warden will be a good choice. Like I said before, the Templar is your stereotypical priest and paladin type of vibe. That is the vibe that they have. Then you have Nightblade, and they focus on stealth and siphoning the health and life force from your opponents, as well as using shadowy, like dagger type of magic, which augments their attacks or even can assist them in their own defense. Then you, like I said, have the Sorcerer, which uses conjuration to bring forces from Oblivion to do their bidding, as well as use lightning bolts and do shock magic. And then you also have your Dragon Knights, which are fire and brimstone and spikes and disease and stuff like that. That is what they focus on, especially a lot of fire involved here, a lot of fire and dragons, in case you couldn't tell by the name, in case that didn't give it away. But my personal two favorites, because I know people always ask, my personal two favorite classes are the Nightblade and the Dragon Knight. They are just what appeal to me the most. But again, class, what is fun and what is flavorful to you is going to be completely unique to you. Now, before I inevitably get asked this question, what class is best? Play what you think is going to be fun, okay? Because right now, if I tell you sorcerers are currently the best, Magicka sorcerers are currently the strongest in the game, okay? If I tell you that, that might not be the case in a month or two. They might get nerfed by ZeniMax to a point where they're not even that good anymore. So you're better off just playing whatever class that you think is cool and whatever class that you think is fun. Because let's say, for example, right, you play a Stamina Nightblade at a point where they're not really that strong, okay? And you get pretty good at your Stamina Nightblade. You know, you train and you learn and you figure stuff out and you make your character work. Well, if Stamina Nightblades ever get buffed, you're going to be really freaking good because you practiced on them at a time where they were weak. So I would just recommend picking whatever class you think looks the coolest and that you think will be the most fun. Next, we are going to go into character creation. So right when you first get in, you just have to obviously choose your gender, male or female, choose the alliance that you want, and then if you don't have the adventurer pack, you have to choose a race on the alliance or the imperial if you have the imperial edition. But if you have the adventurers pack, you can choose any race, any alliance. Then you choose your class. So let's say we'll choose a Dragon Knight here. Then you can start customizing your character's body and the other features. So, you know, normally when I do it, I just don't look at any gear. I want to see what my character will look like without gear. So you can just customize, you know, make your character as large, as thin, or as jacked as you physically want. You can do stuff, excuse me, like change your skin color, change the body markings that appear on your character, and all the dimensions of your upper and lower body. And then same thing with the face. You know, you can completely adjust how your face looks, you know, heroic, soft, angular, or somewhere in between. You can also change your character's voice. There's all these different voice previews. You know, of course, hairstyle, hair color, age, adornment, aka facial hair and other features, head markings that you want, and then you can completely customize the face. So I'm sure you can tell already, not one character in Elder Scrolls Online are going to look the same. Because of the sheer amount of customization that you have to do to your character, every character is very unique and very different per person. So your character truly is going to be your own. So I am not going to enter the tutorial for this part, but I am just going to talk about it a little bit because there might be some variance in this. I'm not entirely sure how this works now in Morrowind, being that I do have the Morrowind expansion, so I don't know what it's like now without it. So when you have the Morrowind expansion, you do the Morrowind tutorial. There is a new tutorial that they put into the game that gets you right into the story of Morrowind right away. You end up, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you end up landing in Vvardenfell after, and then you go through the tutorial, and then boom, you're in Vvardenfell, and you can quest in Vvardenfell. But if you still want to start your faction's storyline, because I highly recommend doing it, gives you skill points, gives you a lot of experience, and will just start taking you through your quest zone in order for you to get the most out of it and to learn the story and to go through all of your zones. For the Daggerfall Covenant, you're going to want to, I believe, start at Respeccing. For Aldemary Dominion, you're going to want to start at Canarthi's Roost. And for Ebonheart Pact, I believe it's Bleak Rock Isle. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but I do believe it's Bleak Rock Isle. So you're going to want to go to one of those 3 places that corresponds to your faction and start your questing there. Also, when you go back to the main quest area, like to main Tamriel off of Vvardenfell, you're going to, I believe, get the starting quest from the Vestige. Not the Vestige, you're the Vestige. You're going to get the starting quest from the Prophet. This like a spooky, creepy guy is going to come and annoy you, and he's going to ask you for his help. So go talk to him. That is, he will appear at some point. That is the main quest for the whole game, and that is definitely something you want to do because you get a crap ton of experience and skill points every single time you complete a quest for it. So I would recommend getting on that. If you don't have the Morrowind expansion, I think you go through the vanilla tutorial. So none of basically anything that I just said applied to you, because you're going to go through the vanilla tutorial and you're going to just go through that and then have, land in your main starting quest hub for your faction and have the main quest already available to you at that time. So things are a little bit more complicated to get back to your starting zone if you're creating a new character on the Morrowind side, and a little bit less complicated if you're creating it on the vanilla side. I think that's how it goes. I'm not sure if vanilla people also get access to the Morrowind tutorial. I can't imagine that they do, but that is at least my assumption. So what I'm going to go over next is the user interface. So basically I'm going to show you all the different menus and all of the stuff that's going to appear on your HUD and what you have to look at. So the first tab here is the crown store. So you can scroll through the crown store. You can buy crowns here right in game. I think it'll take you to a web page. So this will open the Elder Scrolls Online PC Mac store in your default web browser of choice. So you can buy crowns through that, and then they'll appear right here in game. Then you can go through and purchase anything you want. Now you have crown crates. Again, if you did not watch the ESO Plus, if you did not watch the section about the crown store, I personally don't recommend doing these. When I spend my money, I like to spend my money on guarantees. If you like to gamble though and have a little bit of fun that way, then maybe the crown store's for you. But personally, it is not my cup of tea. Then you next have your inventory, which has all of these different tabs on it, so you can scroll through it that way. At least this is how it looks for PC. So this is what your bag looks like. Everything does get categorized, so you can look through everything relatively easily. Then next you have, and also when you're in your bags, you also see your character's gear over here and some stats as well. So you're able to like equip gear from your bag onto your character over here. But if you want to see the full stat page that your character has, you go over here. So you can see what your name is, so your race and your class, the title that you have, what rank you are in your alliance, if you have a bounty on yourself, so if you committed any crime, and then I'll go over that later. And then you have all of your stats. You have more specific stats, anything about your horse, and whether or not you're ready to train it. Again, I'll go over that more later, and then any active effects that you have on yourself. You then have all of your skills. Again, I'm going to go into some of these sections more specifically later, but just showing you the basics of the menu. So you have all of your skills here. The way skills work now, I believe, I think that changed in Morrowind, is that I know you're probably looking at that going, wow, Dottz Gaming, that's a lot of frickin' skill trees. How do I know what to do? Don't worry about it. Don't get too overwhelmed. They unlock now as you get stuff that's relevant to them. So for example, right, you're not going to have all of these weapon trees immediately as soon as you play. As soon as you get to pick up a two-handed weapon, you'll unlock the two-handed skill tree. Once you put on a one-handed shield, you'll unlock that skill tree. So they made the skill trees a little bit more manageable for new players now. You also have the champion menu. You will not have access to this until you have at least one level 50 or champion point 10 character. We'll go over that later. But you're not going to see this in your menus when you are a brand new player. So so don't get concerned if this is not there. You then have your quest journal, so this is where all your quests are. Your lore library is in here, your achievements are in here, and anything about the leaderboards from the Alliance War, Trials, Battlegrounds, or solo arenas. You then have your collections for anything you collected, so you can see, you know, these are all the upgrades to my account, any costumes that I have, personalities which affect how my characters stand and stuff, any polymorphs that I have for my character, any assistants that I have, so I have the merchant and the banker, so stuff like that is all pretty much placed here. You then have your map, so you can right-click out, and you can see the whole map. Okay, you can even go another level, that's Cold Harbor, this is Tamriel. So it just gives you a big overview of the world. You then have your group pane, so basically anything that involves a group can be here. So this is where your active group will be. This is the dungeon finder, so you can queue for dungeons here. You have your Alliance War, so you must be in an AVA location to join the queue for the Alliance War. And then Battlegrounds if you want to queue for Battlegrounds. Then you have your friends list, simply explanatory, and then you also have your ignore list. You then have your guilds, so you can see you can be in up to 5 guilds at once. Again, I will go more into guilds later, but this is where all your guilds are. You have your Alliance War pane, so you can see how you're doing, like what your experience is and ranks are in the Alliance War. Any scoring, bonuses, emperorship, who's competing for emperor. Again, I will go over more of this later, just again showing you the basic menus. Any mail, any notifications, and then help. You have, you know, access to all of these different help files. Then when you're actually playing in the game, this is at least how it looks for PC. You have your chat, your text chat on the bottom left. Now my UI is going to look a little bit different than the default, being that I do have add-ons on it, which I'm going to cover in the next section. But basically you have your skill bar at the bottom, so you're only going to have access to as a new player. This one single one over here, these 5 abilities, and then your ultimate, so that's what you're going to see. This is caused by an add-on. I'm able to see all of the different potions that I have. Again, I will cover Quickslot items later. Then you're going to have, of course, your health, your magicka, and your stamina, which are your different resources in the game. Again, we'll cover those later. But you are able to see those, and then above is your compass, where you can see where you're heading, and, you know, so I can see, like, in this direction, there's a daily quest, as you can see, denoted by the blue quest marker, so I know I'm walking towards it if I want to. So that is just, you know, the general basics of the UI. You can also see I have my active quest in the top right, where I am, Wayrest Palace District, you can see that. I also have my FPS shown on the bottom left, that is default. And then when I'm targeting players, you could obviously see their unit frame up in the middle of my screen. So this is just a little bit of what the default, or of what the user interface looks like. The next thing I'm going to cover is add-ons, and I'm going to be smart this time, and I'm going to actually tell you guys what add-ons I'm using in this video, and not just what add-ons are in general. So let me just start off with add-ons are only available to you, I think, if you're on PC. I don't think Xbox One and PS4 have access to add-ons. You only have access to them if you are on PC. When you want to install add-ons for yourself on PC, I recommend downloading a program called Minion. It makes managing your add-ons so much easier than just doing it yourself. You're also going to want to go into your user settings and change your set LUA memory to, I believe it is 128 or 512. Whichever, if you're going to use the add-on Master Merchant, which basically keeps track of everything that gets bought or sold in the guild store, I would recommend going 512. But if not, set that to 128 so that you do not get memory errors. If you want to know more about that, though, and don't really know what I'm saying, I would recommend checking out my Elder Scrolls Online Guides playlist, and there is a video called How to Install Add-ons and Fix LUA Memory Errors, if you didn't understand it from that little blurb that I just said. But, excuse me. For the add-ons that I personally use, okay, add-ons basically just augment your game, change it up a little bit to make it look, you know, a specific way that you want it to look. So when you're in your settings over here, you can actually change your add-on settings, or if you just want to look at the add-ons you currently have, you can go over here. Now, I know you're probably looking, wow, Dottz Gaming, a lot of your add-ons are out of date, and I know even more of you are going to go, Dottz Gaming, my add-ons are out of date, and I can't use them. What do I do? Just check this little box. Allow out-of-date add-ons. So any add-ons that are not currently updated and are out of date will still run anyway. Whenever ZOS patches the game, it will automatically uncheck this box. So make sure that you go back and check it. But the add-ons that I'm currently using to get my game to look like this are Advanced Member Tooltip. That's something I use as a guild master. You do not really need that. Advanced UI is what makes my frames and everything look the way that they do. It is also what gives me access to that bar at the bottom left so that I can change all of my consumables with just a click of a couple of buttons instead of holding my Q down and switching between them. It just makes it a lot easier to manage IMO. So I like that. And then it also gives me some in-combat text messages that I like that the default combat text doesn't have, so I also use it for that. Then we have Awesome Guild Store. Awesome Guild Store makes purchasing things from the Guild Store much easier. Again, if you don't know what the Guild Store is, I will go into it more later in the video, but it makes purchasing things from the Guild Store much easier because it gives you a lot more search options. You also have Dark UI. That is what makes my user interface just kind of have like a darkish theme to it. I like it. It's much softer on the eyes. Dark UI for anything on computers nowadays is just the way to go. Then you have Destinations. Destinations just puts little icons on your map for all different places. And also in tandem with that comes lore books and sky shards. So sky shards basically are shown by these little symbols right here. Okay, so they show you where all the sky shards are in game. Again, I will come more into those later. And then the same thing with lore books, we'll go more into them later, but it shows you where they all are on your map. But specifically what Destinations does is it shows you where certain places are on your map if you have it checked off. It could show you where everything is in the game, but I don't like having my screen too cluttered with icons, so I only have it show specific things. It's a very, very customizable add-on. What I have after that is Dressing Room. Dressing Room allows me to basically set gear and ability sets. So I have my PvP 2H Resto set and my PvE Fire and Shock Destro Staff set. So all I have to do is click this, set 1, and it will automatically dress me up in my gear and put my ability bars the way I want it. So it's very convenient. I have Godsend, which allows me to send mail to my entire guild at once. Again, I already talked about lore books. Master Merchant keeps track of all of your guild store's info, so you know how to price things, what to sell stuff for, how things are successfully selling. It just makes selling things on your guild trader like 1,000 times easier. There are player buffs in game, so you can see what buffs your character has. I still like to use the Shrendar add-on because I find it way more customizable than the default one, so that's just me. I already talked about Sky Shards. And then Trait Buddy is something I use for research, so I can basically see what traits I have researched for blacksmithing, clothing, and woodworking. I could also see what motifs I have, and then if I have currently anything researching on any of my characters, so I can see that I still have stuff being researched on Dottz for the blacksmithing, clothing, and woodworking. Now, if you are watching this part straight off the bat, you probably, like 99% of what I just said probably went over your head, but I'd recommend watching the other sections, getting a grasp on the basics, and then come back and watch the section. I believe you'll get a bigger appreciation for all of the add-ons, and you'll definitely get a bigger appreciation for them once you start playing a little bit and you realize that a lot of these add-ons will make your life a lot easier. Especially, I also like AUI. It gives you this mini-map on the side, so you don't have to press M every 5 freaking seconds. But let's move on to the next section. The next section I'm going to cover is attributes and Magicka versus stamina builds. This is a huge question for new players coming into the game and generally can overwhelm them, but I will make it very simple. So you have 3 attributes at your disposal. You have Magicka, who have health, and you have stamina. Now, a lot of people always ask me, Dottz Gaming, I have no idea what I should be doing and where I should be placing these attributes as a new player. Basically, you kind of need to decide for yourself, do you want to be a Magicka using character or a stamina using character? I know for a lot of you new guys, you're probably like, that means nothing to me. I don't know what to do. The way it works is certain abilities will use a certain resource. Okay, so you can see Lotus Fan uses Magicka. Impale uses Magicka. Then you have Merciless Resolve, uses Magicka. Then you have Uppercut, uses stamina. Basically, if the overwhelming majority of your abilities are going to utilize stamina, Okay, if you want the overwhelming majority of your abilities to utilize stamina, you want to put almost all, if not all, your points into stamina. If the majority of your abilities are going to use Magicka, you are going to want to put almost all, if not all, your points into Magicka. The reason being is that you want to have a bigger resource pool for these types of abilities, but the abilities scale, aka get stronger, based off how big your resource pool is for their cost resource. So for example, Uppercut, if I give a gabillion Magicka, Uppercut's not going to get any stronger because it scales with stamina because it costs stamina. The more stamina I get, the more Uppercut is going to scale. But for example, with Lotus Fan, the more Magicka I get, the stronger Lotus Fan is going to get. But I know some of you are probably going to see when you first get into the game that a lot of your class abilities are going to be Magicka costing abilities, and you're going to be like, well, Dottz Gaming, do I have to be a Magicka character now? What do I do? No, you do not. For example, I'll do Impale. Impale is the Magicka morph. Okay, so basically you start with a base ability. I don't remember what the base ability of this is called, but you start with a base ability, and you level it up, okay? As you can see by this bar over here, this is an experience bar. You're going to level up this skill, okay, by using it. And then once it reaches rank 4, you have a choice. You can change it into one of 2 different abilities, and each ability has a different effect. It just so happens that one morph, which is what it's called, of this base ability is called Killer's Blade, and that scales off of stamina. The base ability costs Magicka, but you can change it into a stamina ability, or you can keep it a Magicka ability and it'll gain a different effect. So that is how you change your class skills into stamina skills. But regardless, some Magicka users may still have a stamina ability on their bar, and stamina users are still going to have a Magicka ability on their bar. But if you overwhelmingly use Magicka abilities, you want to have most, if not all, your points in Magicka, and then vice versa for stamina. Now, I know you guys are probably wondering what's going on with health. There are certain thresholds that you need to reach for health. I don't entirely know for tanks. Okay, I don't really know for tanks. You might need to look that up if you want to play a tank. There is a general rule of thumb for health pool that you should be hitting for tanks. And you're going to, if you don't get that amount of health from your gear, you're going to need to put in points here in order to get that much. Basically, the way I kind of explain it to people is you want to put points into health to reach minimum thresholds. So, for example, in PvE, if after all is said and done with your gear, you do not have at least, I think it's the rule of thumb is 18k health. If you do not have 18k health, this is at the end of the game, okay? When you're at the champion point 160 or above, I'll explain why that's important later. If you do not have at least 18,000 health, you should put points into health to reach that threshold, okay? If your gear does not get you there. For PvP, I believe the minimum threshold depends on who you talk to, but in my mind, it's 20k health. You don't want to be at less than 20k health if you're going to be PvPing, but make sure that you check that inside of Cyrodiil, which is, you know, the world PvP zone, because you do gain extra health inside of Cyrodiil. You just want to make sure that you have enough attributes in order to get yourself to that minimum 20k threshold. The next thing I'm going to talk to is a little bit more of an advanced topic. I wanted to make an entire video on it, but I figured, you know what, we're going for the big kahuna guide here, so I'm just going to add it in. And that is damage types and scaling. This is actually something I didn't really learn about until later on in the game for me, but I figure, you know what, let me teach the new guys it so that you guys understand from the get-go. There are different types of damage in the game. There's magic damage, flame damage, frost damage, shock damage, physical damage, bleed damage, poison damage, and disease damage. Now, all of these types of damage get stronger with certain stats, okay? So now, if you're a magic user, okay, the types of damage that get stronger based off of your spell damage and maximum Magicka pool are magic, flame, frost, and shock. And those get mitigated, aka become lesser, if you're defending with spell resistance. On the flip side, for physical damage, aka your stamina pool, what gets stronger with your stamina pool is physical damage, bleed damage, poison damage, and disease damage, and that scales with weapon damage and max stamina. And that is mitigated, aka made less than, by armor. So if you see that something has, if you're a Magicka user, and if you see that something has disease damage on it, you could take confidence knowing, not going to do as much damage as it could because I have mainly points into my Magicka. So keep that in mind when you're exploring the game and looking at the different types of damage that is on your gear. In addition, they all have different status effects that they apply. Flame adds an extra dot. Frost adds a slow. Shock adds a debuff that reduces damage done. Bleed, I also believe, adds a dot. Poison also adds a dot, and then disease adds a healing debuff for some time on your enemy. The next topic I'm going to cover is weapon swapping. You're probably looking at my character right now and seeing that I really only have access to 5 abilities and an ultimate ability. The ultimate ability costs ultimate, it's its own resource. So you're probably thinking, it's really not that much. Is that going to really be entertaining? Well, you have access to a second weapon and a second bar of abilities, giving you a total of 12 abilities accessible to your character, as well as a variety of consumables that you can use in your quick slot bar, but I will go over that later in the video. But basically, the ability to use 2 different weapons gives your character a lot of customization. So for example, on my character, this is my PvP build. I'm still currently missing ability on my front bar right now, but my back bar is mainly used for buffing myself and range DPS, and then my front bar is used for CC and a melee option that I give my character where I deal the overwhelming majority of my damage. So you can really customize your character through having different weapon bars. You can really customize your character to be very, very unique to you and have its own personal flavor. There's a lot of different combinations that you could use, sword and board, and dual wield and bow, resto staff and destro staff, double destro staff. Like, you can do so many different things. It's basically sky's the limit. Your imagination's the limit. So just customize your character however you want, but just know that you unlock this at level 15 and you have access to a second weapon, thus giving you access to 6 more abilities. Alright, now one of the big kahuna sections, skills. This section is going to be a little bit long because it has a lot of explanation. So every time you level, going from level 1 to level 50, you are going to gain a skill point every single time you level. Skill points are spent on skills. You also gain skill points by collecting sky shards. Sky shards can be found throughout the world, and collecting 3 sky shards will get you a skill point. So every time you collect 3, you will gain a skill point. So they are extremely important. Also, doing the main quest line of the game, every single time you complete one of those quests, you gain a skill point. So I would recommend at the very least, you doing that quest, because that quest line, you have to, because you get so many skill points from it. But anyway, moving into this, you get the skill points you could spend on skills and on passives. So you have your ultimate ability for your tree, active abilities, and passive abilities. Now, the way this works is on your front bar, which is bar 1, and your back bar, bar 2, weapon swapping. If you didn't watch that section, watch that. You'll understand why I have 2 bars. You want to have at least 1 skill from all of your clash trees on that bar while you level. And you're probably wondering, why? If, let's say, for example, I don't have a siphoning ability on this bar, okay? Soul Tether is my siphoning ability. But let's say I didn't have Soul Tether on my bar, and I'm a brand new character, okay? And I want to level my siphoning up. Leveling siphoning up is very important. I will not level up siphoning up. Improve this skill by earning experience, equipping additional siphoning skills to increase this skill's advancement. So this is going to level extremely slow if you don't have a siphoning ability slotted. Same thing with Shadow, and same thing with Assassination, or whatever the names of your clash trees are. You want to make sure that while you're leveling, on your front and back bar, you have at least 1 ability from each tree. And honestly, when you get to endgame, I would recommend trying to stay true to that. And the reason I recommend that is because of passives. ESO is all about passives. Your passives are extremely important when it comes to your character's power, and is generally one of the least understood things by new characters. Passives used to be a lot more complicated in the respect that it didn't really tell you when and why to use the passives, but they've done a good job at updating the tooltips to really explain it. So you could see here, right? Let's look at Hemorrhage. With an assassination ability slotted, increases your critical damage done by 10%. Dealing critical damage grants you minor savagery, increasing your weapon critical strike rating by 657 for 20 seconds. So if I didn't have an assassination ability on my bar, I'd be missing 10% critical damage. For example, for siphoning. If I don't have a siphoning ability slotted, Magicka Flood won't give me anything. That is 8% max Magicka I'm losing out on, which as a Magicka DPS character is extremely important. Might not be so important for a stamina character, but for a Magicka character, this is very, very, very important. But, you know, otherwise, you know, Catalyst, after drinking a potion, you'll gain 20 ultimate. I'll have that no matter what. So you need to read your passives here to see what you're really going to be having access to and what requires an ability and what doesn't require an ability. But I would recommend for every class, you want all of your class passives. At the very minimum, you want all your class passives. Now, when it comes to, like I said, placing skill points, you want to put, at the very least, one skill from each of your class trees on your bars in order to really accelerate the experience gain in all of these trees. Now, when it comes to weapons and armor, I'll start off with armor first. I think it'll be a little bit easier to talk about. The way armor works is you need to level it up by wearing it. When you're leveling, if you have really no idea what you want to do, wear a freaking hodgepodge of different armor. Wear some light armor, wear some medium armor, wear some heavy armor. Wear a little bit of everything, because you'll be gaining experience in all of the different lines. And the reason you're probably wondering, well, Dottz Gaming, I want to be a Magicka user, so shouldn't I just be mainly wearing light armor? The reason you want to wear, if you're being Magicka, you want to wear 5 pieces of light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. If you're a stamina user, you want to wear 5 pieces of medium, 1 light, 1 heavy. And if you're a tank, you want to wear 5 pieces of heavy, 1 light, 1 medium. The reason you want to do this, that's the optimal goal. When you're leveling, you can do a completely, you know, mishposh, hodgepodge, whatever of skills. But when you get to the end, the reason you want to do that combination is, number one, you're also going to gain the passives from the other trees. So, like, I primarily am getting all of my light armor passive. See, when 5 or more pieces of light armor are equipped, I get all that extra spell pen. But when it comes to my medium armor, I gain all of these passives from my medium armor tree because I have a single piece of medium armor on, except for agility because I only have 1, not 5. From heavy armor, I get these 3, okay? If I wear, for example, 7 pieces of light armor, I'll be missing out on all of these passives. But another reason that you want to wear the 3 different types of armor is because one of the NPC guilds that you could join, we'll go over that later, the Undaunted, has an amazing passive called Undaunted Metal, which will eventually say increases your max health and stamina, and Magicka by 2% per armor type that you have equipped. So because I have 3 different types of armor equipped, I will be getting 6% extra stats on my character. Now, obviously, that rule of thumb with the armor doesn't hold true for every single build out there, but it is a good rule of thumb. The way it works now with skill lines is that you unlock skill lines as you encounter the items in the game. So as soon as you pick up a piece of heavy armor and equip it, you will unlock the heavy armor skill line. Same thing with medium light. With worlds, you know, you'll get the vampire skill line when you become a vampire. With the guild, you'll get the fighters guild when you talk to someone in the fighters guild. So you're not going to be completely overwhelmed by skills when you first start. But I would recommend putting your points into trees that are relevant. So again, you're going to want to put, you know, I have points into these abilities because I use them. Again, all the passives. These abilities because I use them, all the passives. Same thing with siphoning. With weapons, I have points into the stuff that I use. So I have a Destro Staff that I use for PvE. So I have a point to the ability that I use, all the passives. I use Restoration for PvP. I have points into the abilities that I use, all the passives. So that is pretty much how you want to work your abilities and your passives. Don't just, you know, go place stuff willy-nilly, all right? You will be able to pretty much fill out all of your different skill lines by the end of the game, but you need to really be diligent in getting your sky shards and all of the skill points that you could possibly get, because we're gonna reach a point where you're like, oh man, rolling in skill points. I have so many skill points. And then all of a sudden, as you start to unlock more skill lines, you realize you don't have nearly as many skill points as you thought, and you have a lot that you need to place. So I would basically just try, as a new player, I know I'm kind of rambling and getting a little in depth here, but I would just, as a new player, focus on putting your skill points and skills into your classes, your class trees. Again, one ability per bar. Wear a completely, you know, hodgepodge mishmash of armor, okay, until you eventually, you know, decide on your armor type and you have one of these 5 or more pieces equipped. At least have 5 pieces equipped. And then for the weapons, in order to level up the weapons, you just simply have to use the weapon. You don't have to have any of the abilities slotted. You just have to use the weapon in order to level it up. You obviously, again, it's just like the skill lines. You will gain additional experience if you have a two-handed ability equipped, or, you know, a dual-wield ability equipped or whatnot. But you don't have to, it's not mandatory. So you could just use the weapon itself and it will gain experience. I covered a good bit about gear and weapons in the previous section, skill points, so I would recommend giving that section a watch. It is definitely worth watching so you know how to spend your skill points. And I also talked about what types of armor to equip, but I will reiterate it again for this section. There are 3 different types of armor in the game: light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor. Heavy armor is mostly associated with tanking, medium armor is mostly associated with stamina, and light armor is mostly associated with magicka. Basically, you want to wear 5 pieces that correspond to the role you're going to be filling. So if you're going to be a magicka user, you want to generally wear 5 pieces of light armor. If you're going to be a stamina user, you want to wear 5 pieces of medium armor. If you want to mainly be a tank, you want to wear 5 pieces of heavy armor. And then those other 2 pieces, because I'm sure you're noticing the 7 total pieces that you can equip, is going to be 1 piece of each of the other armor type. So if you're a light armor user, you're going to have 1 piece heavy, 1 piece medium. If you're a medium, you're going to have 1 piece heavy, 1 piece light. And if you're a heavy user, you're going to have 1 piece light, 1 piece medium. It is ordered to gain the other passives from those skill trees, as well as utilize the passive Undaunted Metal, which gives you extra stats. You also have access to jewelry that you can put on, which further augments your character. And then you obviously have both sets of weapons. Any character can use any armor and use any weapon in the game. So you're not limited by class. It doesn't matter. Whatever class you are, you can use any weapon, any armor that you want. It's not like other games like WoW, where certain classes can only wear certain armor types and use certain weapons. You have complete control in Elder Scrolls Online. The next section I'm going to cover is NPC Guilds. So you can join all of the NPC guilds if you want to, and you also gain a quest line for all the NPC guilds that you join. There's the Dark Brotherhood, the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, the Thieves Guild, and the Undaunted. The Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood require you to have their respective DLCs, and the Fighters, Mages, and Undaunted are base with the game. The Fighters Guild can be seen in game right here, just kidding. This is the Fighters Guild. The Fighters Guild is where you want to go to do not only that questline, but to get the crafting certifications for blacksmithing, woodworking, and clothing. I will go over those more in the crafting section. And then you have the Mages Guild, which can be seen by this icon, which obviously not only unlocks that questline, but you can also do crafting certifications for enchanting, provisioning, and alchemy. And then the Undaunted can generally be found in an inn, and those give you that, basically that guild is all about doing dungeons and the group dungeon content in the game. It's very, very strong. You get access to some really, really good passives, and you also are able to eventually do Undaunted Pledges. Undaunted Pledges are something that you could do at level 45 that allow you to do dungeon quests, turn it in, get a key, and then you could use that key to unlock a chest that will give you good gear. So getting into each of those 3 guilds is very important because you get access to a lot of content that's necessary for your character's progression. The Mages Guild skill lines are extremely good for Magicka characters. The Fighters Guild skill lines are extremely good for stamina characters, and the Undaunted chests are very good for everyone because the sets that you get from them are extremely strong. The Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild is mostly you gain passives from them. No really big active abilities, but the content that you get to experience. It's very fun. It is DLC content. It's not as core to the game as the Fighters, Mages, and Undaunted Guild, but they're still fun, and I would recommend checking them out, especially Dark Brotherhood, if that's the type of content that you want to take a look at. The next thing I'm going to talk about is player guilds, the guild store, and the guild trader. So player guilds are your stereotypical guilds from other games. It is just groups of players that are unified under a banner that can play together. Now, the way that this works now is any player of any faction, any level, can join a guild and play together at any time, except for in Cyrodiil PvP. You can also be into up to 5 guilds at once. You are not limited to 1 player guild. You can be in up to 5 player guilds at the same time. Each player guild, though, is assigned a faction. The only thing that that faction is for if your guild wants to claim a structure inside of Cyrodiil PvP, you have to do it under the guild banner that is associated with the guild. So, for example, my Dippin' Dots guild, if you want to join on a PCNA, just whisper me at Dottz Gaming. But we can only claim keeps for the name of the Covenant. We cannot claim Dominion keeps as these are ours, or Ebonheart Pact keeps as these are ours. You know, there will be no Dippin' Dots banners can fly there. We can only say this is for the Covenant. Hell yeah, let's go. That type of thing. Now, when it comes to the guild store, there is no central auction house in Elder Scrolls Online. You have to use the guild store, okay? The guild store is how you sell your items. I would recommend joining a trading guild. What a trading guild is it is a guild that focuses on just that, buying and selling items, mainly selling items. But it is a guild that focuses heavily around their guild store and selling items to not only members of the guild, but to the general public through the guild trader, which I will talk about next. The guild store is accessed by going to a banker, talking to them, guild store, you choose your guild. So for example, I'll choose my trading guild here and I go to sell, and I'm able to sell items on my guild store. So the items will be listed on the guild store and guild members will have access to them. Now, for example, let's say, because I'm in Wayrest right now, so I'll show you some other guilds. You're probably wondering, so only members of my guild can buy the items that I put up for sale. That kind of stinks. Well, that is where the guild trader comes in. Basically, what the guild trader does is it makes your guild's guild store public facing. So other members of your, sorry, I keep saying so. Other members of your mega server are going to be able to buy from the guild trader. They cannot sell on the guild trader, but they could purchase from the guild trader. So, bleh. If you go to, let's say here, we have Atine. If I talk to her, I can buy stuff off of the Black Dragon Apothecary Guild store. I am allowed to go into here now. I can't sell. If you see, the sell thing is blurred out, but I can browse and purchase from the guild store if I so choose. That is how items are bought and sold. That is why guild traders are very, very expensive. Basically, guild masters bid on the traders. I have it set to auto talk, but basically whenever you talk to her, one of the options is bid. So I could put money down and be like, okay, I want to buy this guild trader spot for, let's say, 1,000,000 gold, which is a lot. You know, I want to buy this for 1,000,000 gold. Having a guild trader in a central location is really, really good because it's just, there's a higher population around the trader. You know, Wayrest is the capital for the Daggerfall Covenant. So having a trader in Wayrest is awesome because of the fact that people are constantly here. So your guild trader is so easily accessible. If you have your guild trader in, say, the middle of nowhere, odds are there's not going to be a lot of people trying to purchase items for your guild trader because it is in the middle of nowhere. Therefore, it's really, really important to just have your, you know, for trading guilds to have their guild trader in a central location. So basically what I would recommend doing is if you are joining a trading guild, you want to make sure that not only do they have a lot of members so that there's plenty of activity on the guild, but you also want to make sure that their guild trader is in a centralized location so that your items will actually be moved and not just sit there listed forever. Next topic that I'm going to discuss is mount training. In the Elder Scrolls Online, all players have access to mounts that they can ride around on. There is no level requirement to get a mount or use a mount. You just have to purchase it. You could get mounts through either the Crown Store, so you could just straight up buy a mount in the Crown Store. So if you just search mounts, you can look at all the different mounts that you have access to, or you can go through, let's say, the Imperial Edition upgrade, which has access to the Imperial Horse, or if you do not want to spend crowns on it, you could also just buy it straight up. Here, costs a good chunk of money. The basic horse is 10k, at least when I'm looking at it right here. But the main point that I want to discuss here is the training. Okay, training is very, very, very important. Training is character specific, though. It is not account-wide. In my opinion, the way that you want to train your horse is as follows. Speed is always number one. Makes your horse faster. Your horse is abysmally slow when it first starts, so you're going to want to try to max out your speed as first as possible. In terms of stamina versus carrying capacity, I always get asked about this all the time. I personally think that I did some carrying capacity initially just because I wanted some more bag space. I only went up to 10. If you're a PvEer, okay, if you do not ever plan on PvEing, max carrying capacity second and stamina last, because stamina allows you to sprint longer and take more hits before you become dismounted. So this is very important in PvP if you're trying to like zoom past a group and you don't want to get totally dismounted while you're trying to run past them. And it also allows you to run for longer, which in Cyrodiil, which is just a gigantic zone, you want that stamina. It's very important for PvP. For PvE, not so much. You know, you don't really need a huge stamina pool. You know, therefore, if you are going to be PvPing, I would recommend leveling up stamina second and carrying capacity third, unless you want to get it to like do like what I did and get up till 10, so that you have a little bit more bag space at your disposal. Otherwise, if you're just going to be PvEing or not really ever be PvPing at all, carrying capacity will be second and stamina will be last. But trust me, speed has to come first, because otherwise your horse will be abysmally slow. It costs 250 gold per upgrade and takes 20 hours for each upgrade to go through. The next thing I'm going to cover is key binding. A lot of people always ask, how do I change my buttons? It's very simple. You just go into hit escape, or if you're on console start, I'm assuming, or whatever gets you to your settings, and you're going to want to go to controls, key bindings, and this allows you to change anything you want. It's very simple to scroll through. You can see you have the combat ones, the movement ones, targeting, camera, interaction, user interface, but the one that I constantly get asked about is where are my add-on keybinds, and that is all the way at the bottom. So once you get down below user interface is where all of your add-on keybinds are. So you can see my Godsend, my Trait Buddy, Dressing Room, Master Merchant, and Advanced UI, as well as some other shortcuts, you know, Siege, Dialogue, Notifications, HUD. This is all different keybinds for everything in the game under this menu, and you can set up to 4 total binds if you really feel like you need 4 binds. But this just gives you a lot of control over how you want to control your character and your game. Next up is the dye station. So the dye station can be found on your map, right as so. It looks like a little cauldron with the stick in it, or the spoon, or whatever is stuck in this bowl. But basically you're going to come over to the station and use the station, and it allows you to transform the color of your armor. Just pick whatever colors that you want from all the different dyes and dye your armor accordingly. If you have ESO+, you're also allowed to dye and change the colors of your costumes. So you can alter the colors of your costumes. Without ESO+, you're not able to do this. This just gives your character another further level of customizability, so you can completely change the colors of your gear to fit your own personal tastes. Another very important feature in this game is Wayshrines and fast traveling. You are able to fast travel to any Wayshrine at any time for the cost of gold. If you're in the end of a dungeon and you don't want to walk all the way out, you can just go and select whatever Wayshrine that you want. The cost is going to scale. The initial cost is going to scale with your level, so as you level up, it's going to cost more gold, and you are able to travel to that Wayshrine. But If I fast travel to a Wayshrine without, like, just from where I am, using gold and travel to a Wayshrine, the cost is going to exponentially raise each time. If you want to travel for free and not incur that exponential cost, you could just go to a Wayshrine, use the Wayshrine, and travel to another one for free. You discover these Wayshrines simply by walking up to them. For example, if we go to... where the heck is this? If we go to Malabal Tor, if I was to, let's say, walk up to the Volkwestan Wayshrine, if I walked up to it, it would become white, and that means I have access to it and would be able to teleport to and from it. But otherwise, this is how they appear on your map, and I have to actually physically go there and discover that location. Another way to fast travel is if you're in a group. You could go here, and let's say you could see, this would be where my group is. If there's another player in my group, I could right-click that player and click travel to player, and it will send me directly to that player free of charge. You could also do the same thing for your in-game house and travel to your house for free. In addition, you could also travel to dungeons. So once you have a dungeon discovered, you could see here on the map, I could travel to Spindle Clutch 1. I could fast travel to Spindle Clutch 1 from this Wayshrine. If I don't use the Wayshrine, though, it does cost gold in order to recall here, just like the Wayshrines do, and operates under the exact same conditions. The next topic I'm going to cover is max level and the champion point system. So there are 50 total levels in the game. But once you hit level 50, you become champion point level 10, or in terms of in-game jargon, CP 10. Now that 10, the number after the CP, so your champion point number, represents the number of champion points you have to spend in the champion point system. As of the creation of this video, the total number of champion points usable is 630 at the time of the release of Morrowind. You can have up to 630 usable champion points. And champion points and the champion point system is the major form of progression once you get past level 50. That's the main way you progress your character. Once you hit CP 160, that is when gear stops getting better. So there is no CP 170 gear, there is no CP 200 gear. CP 160 is gear cap. So past that, the only progression is through champion points, which massively augment your character passively, though. So it's not like, oh, you know, once I hit CP 160, I can get max level gear, the game is done. The game is far from done. Champion points in the champion point system gives you passive ability, gives you passive stats towards your character. So just as some examples, right, we're going to look into the Shadow Tree, one of the green trees, okay? Befoul increases the effectiveness of your healing reduction abilities by 1.1% would be my next point. If we look at some that I have, though, let's say in the Apprentice, I have 49 points into Elemental Expert. Increases your Flame, Frosted Shock magic damage and magic damage by 11%. So I get this passive increase to my stats from placing points in the champion point system. So the more points I place, the stronger I'm going to get. Now, I'm sure you're going to notice the three different categories. The red categories are under the warrior, the green are under the thief, and the blue are under the mage. So what ends up happening is whenever you gain blue points, you get also some passive magicka. When you gain red points, you also gain passive health, and when you get green points, you also gain passive stamina. But it's not like you can put all of your points into stamina, or all of your points into magicka, or all of your points into health through the champion point system. You gain 1 point of each type in a sequential order. I believe the order is something like red, green, blue, or something to that effect. I don't know the exact order, but you gain 1 of each point, and then it goes back to the beginning. So that is the main form of progression once you hit the level cap of 50. And also, if you hit CP 10 on one character, those champion points are available to all of the characters across your account. So let's say you have a character that ends up getting to CP 600. As soon as you get a second character to CP levels, that character automatically becomes CP 600. And you have those 600 champion points individually available on each character. So for example, let's say I have a CP 600 Dragon Knight and use all my champion points on him, and then I start leveling a Templar. It's not like I have 0 points left for my Templar. My Templar has his own set of 600 points, so that makes the end game grind just a little bit easier because there already is plenty enough to do on each individual character in ESO. So it is nice that the champion points are account wide and not just relegated to one character. The next point I'm going to talk about is being a vampire versus being a werewolf, because this is a question that comes up a lot for new players. You have an option to be one of 3 things: just a regular person, a vampire, or a werewolf. If you become a vampire or a werewolf, you gain access to a separate skill tree. As you can see here, I am a vampire on this character, so I have access to the vampire skill tree that comes with its own set of abilities and its own set of passives. Now, the general rule of thumb I tend to tell people is you want to go vampire for Magicka characters and you want to go werewolf for stamina characters. And that is just a very generalization, but the more I've learned about the game, the more I've kind of my opinion on that has become more refined. I would say if you feel like you can incorporate the werewolf abilities into your build, then I would recommend becoming a werewolf. I would recommend just Googling what the werewolf abilities and the werewolf passives are and see if that's something that you want to incorporate into your build, and if so, become a werewolf. But a werewolf really will only benefit someone who utilizes stamina. On the other side, you have the vampire. The main benefits of the vampire are you gain some really cool passives through damage reduction, and you gain extra recovery and some other really cool passive bonuses, as well as some nice abilities. And vampires, while for the most part their abilities and stuff favor a more Magicka playstyle, you can be a stamina vampire if you really want to, but you just need to take it into account when creating your build. So that is why I tend to tell, especially newer players, that the general rule of thumb is vampire or werewolf. Vampire for Magicka, werewolf for stamina. But if you want a more like kind of like a next step in kind of answer, you kind of need to look at the individual passives of each and see if they really can apply to your build. Vampire for stamina builds is kind of a specific situation where you want to see if the passives are really going to be utilized by your build, because you're not going to really be using the active abilities. And then with the werewolf, that's for really stamina characters only, and you need to see if you want to incorporate those into your build. And if you don't want either, you don't have to be either. You could just be a regular person. It's up to you to decide whether or not which one of these is best for you. But enough talking about that. How do I actually become a vampire or a werewolf? You have a couple of different choices. You can go ahead and buy it off the Crown Store, for example. I could buy Curse of Vampirism off the Crown Store. I believe it's only 1,500 crowns. It's not too expensive. But I would recommend not doing it that way because, you know, you could save yourself some money by doing it a more cost-effective way. Another way, and probably the hardest way to get it, is to be bitten by an NPC, which I recommend not doing because a lot of times players who kind of are bored and really have nothing to do will camp the spawn locations of the werewolves and the vampires, because you can't just be bitten by any werewolf or any vampire. They need to be at specific locations like these spawns that my destination shows on my map. You have to go to one of these spawns and be bitten by one of the NPCs there. And the vampires and the werewolves share spawn locations, so it's either going to be a vampire or a werewolf. And like I said, a lot of times players will grief these locations to make sure that, you know, the NPCs just die. But there is another way. Don't worry. You can be bitten by a friendly player. So I, for example, have talented that I can vampire, like I can bite another player and give them the disease to give them vampirism. All I have to do is take them to a vampire altar. So myself and the player who I want to give vampirism to have to go in a group. We go to the vampire altar, and I can bite him and give him vampirism. Same thing with becoming a werewolf. It's the same process, except for you would go to a werewolf shrine instead of a vampire altar. So that is, in my opinion, probably the easiest way. Don't pay for it, though. I know some players want to charge for it. There are plenty of players who will happily give you the skill line for free. So I'd recommend looking around, maybe posting on a forum or Reddit, or just even asking in your guild if someone can help give you the disease that you want for your character. The next thing I want to talk about is Rededication Shrines. Inevitably, when you level your character and as you progress through the game, your tastes and what you feel about your character's build and the weapons you want to use is going to change. And you're going to think, well, all my skill points are all messed up, they're all in the wrong places. I was playing stamina, now I want to play Magicka, or vice versa, and I don't know what to do. Somebody help me. Well, that is where Rededication Shrines come in. Rededication Shrines allow you to not only respec all of your skill points, you could also choose to only respec your morphs, or you can completely respec your attributes. It's completely up to you. So you're going to want to go to a Rededication Shrine, mainly the Shrine of Akatosh or the Shrine of Stendarr. Look, and this is the symbol that you're looking for. I believe that they are in the 3 capitals, so that would be Mournhold for the Ebonheart Pact, Wayrest for the Daggerfall Covenant, and Eldenroot for the Aldmeri Dominion. So what you're looking at when you get there is the different shrines. We have the Shrine to Stendarr. You're looking... Stendarr blesses you with wisdom and vision, blah, 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 blah. Make a very generous donation to reset all of your skills, or you can choose to pay less and just reset your morphs. So keep in mind when you're building your character that it does cost a good bit of coin to respec your character. So just be very careful when you're placing your skill points and what you choose to do. But if you do need to respec for any reason, don't be afraid that, you know, your character's all messed up. You could just simply go here, shell out a little bit of gold, and you'll be able to redo it. But if you also decide, you know, I want to completely make a switch and also respec my attributes, you can come over to the Shrine of Akatosh and choose to respec your attributes only, which is much cheaper than resetting your skills. Now, the skill price and the morph price is going, and same thing with the attribute price, there's going to go up as you place more and more points. So it's not like you have to pay 81.50 gold to respec 2 points. I have to pay that much to respec like 170 something points. Like it scales up as you gain more and more points. It just costs more and more per skill point. So this is where you're going to want to go if you want to reset the points on your character. The next thing I'm going to talk about are dungeons. Dungeons are group instances where you and 3 other players can go in and fight a whole bunch of enemies. You know, regular big old boss monsters. You have little guys called just trash mobs, and you basically go through the dungeon as a team, kill all the stuff in it, collect all the loot, and then you get a big boost of experience at the end for completing the dungeon. There are normally 4 people in a dungeon party. 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. The tank's job is to obviously take on all the damage, make all the enemies attack him. The DPS's job is to deal damage to all those enemies and make sure to kill all of them. And the healer's job is to keep everybody in the party alive. Now, you could either group with players, you know, just through messaging people and inviting them to your group and physically going to the dungeon and going in. Or you can queue for a dungeon through the Dungeon Finder, which is a bit buggy, but it's getting improved more and more each time. It's a lot better than it was when I tried it a year ago, but it obviously still has its bugs. Now, when you're below CP 10, you have, you know, random normal dungeons. And as you can see, you're going to get premium undaunted exploration supplies, which is stuff that you get in the mail, very high quality items, and some soul gems, which soul gems I will talk on later. And you get a huge bonus of experience, which is why when you're leveling, I highly recommend queuing for dungeons while you level. Especially DPS, your queues are going to be a bit on the longer side because healers and tanks are always in more demand. The amount of experience that you gain is gigantic. You also can, for the first time you do every single dungeon, there is a quest inside that dungeon that not only rewards a lot of experience, but also rewards a skill point, and skill points are extremely important to your character's progression, and you want to get every skill point you possibly can. In addition, it also levels up your Undaunted Guild skill line, which I talked about in the NPC Guild section. If you did not watch that, I would recommend going back. But you could either choose for a random normal dungeon here and just queue for any random dungeon, or you could pick a specific dungeon if you want to do a specific one. Now, these you can group up with any player at any time. So I can group up with, you know, if I was a level... You have to be at least level 10 to do the dungeons, though. So let's say I was a level 10 Daggerfall Covenant. I could group up with a CP 500 Ebonheart Pact and do a dungeon together. All the dungeons scale just like the rest of the content in the world. But you unlock dungeons based on your level. So, you know, when you're level 10, you don't have all of these dungeons unlocked. You have to unlock more and more dungeons while you level up. Now, once you hit champion point level, you also get access to veteran dungeons. You can do random veteran dungeons or specific veteran dungeons. My recommendation, though, is do not queue a random vet dungeon unless you're CP 160 plus. Pugging pickup group, for those of you who are very new to MMOs, you know, it's just a group of random people. Pugging random vet dungeons, you will be kicked by other players if you're not CP 160, because these vet dungeons are actually extremely challenging. And CP 160 is gear cap. If you did not watch the champion point section, I would recommend watching it. CP 160 is gear cap, so they want to make sure that all the players in the group have the max level possible gear on. I would just recommend, unless you're running with a guilds group, wait until you're CP 160 before queuing for random vet dungeons, because they are very hard and very challenging. But regular dungeons will drop superior loot, aka blue colored loot, and then random vet dungeons will drop epic gear or purple gear. So these are very, very good to farm for some gear sets. I recommend doing these while you level, especially while you level, to not only keep your gear current, but to get gear to research. Again, I'll go over researching in the crafting section, but this is a very key way to get gear for research. It's a very, very, very good way to obtain that gear. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Synergies, and for this example, I'm going to talk about it in reference to Soul Tether. So Soul Tether basically ravages nearby enemy souls with a night rune, dealing magic damage, stunning them for 4.5 seconds, and affected enemies are also tethered, siphoning 1.6k health to me every 1 second while they remain nearby. But for the purposes of this part of the guide, this is what we care about. An ally can target an affected enemy and activate Soul Leech to steal 8.6k health. So once I activate Soul Tether, you will see a little prompt on your screen that says, you know, use Soul Leech or something to that effect, and it'll show the default keybind for whatever platform you're on. I believe for PC, the default is X, and you can use the synergy, you know, you can basically synergize with my ability, and you will be activating Soul Leech and stealing 8.6k health. Now, the reason I'm going over this is because synergies are very, very important. It's like a free ability, basically, that you get to use based off of the abilities that your group members are using. So whenever you're in a dungeon, if you see your ally use an ability and there's a synergy on the bottom, definitely activate it. You don't just want to pass up on what could be either free damage or free healing or free CC. You want to just make sure that you use synergies when you can, because it allows you and your party to combo your abilities very, very well. The next thing I'm going to go over is Trials. Trials basically are the Elder Scrolls Online version of the Raid. They are a 12-member group comprised of, you know, tank, DPS, and healers, where it's just a dungeon on a big scale. There's bigger bosses, harder mobs, and it's just a group of 12 people will go through the instance, kill all the bosses, and get all the loot. And this is where this is the game's top tier PvE for groups. This is like the equivalent to raiding in World of Warcraft is Trials. I would recommend, if Trials is something you're interested in, you probably are going to want to look for like Trials Guild, like I said, very similar to World of Warcraft, where if you wanted to raid, you need to get into a raiding guild. As far as I've been able to see through zone chats, I generally don't see a lot of pickup Trials. So again, like I said, if this is something you're interested in, you're going to want to get in a guild for it. But simply put, it is just a dungeon on steroids that requires 12 people, or if you played World of Warcraft or any other similar games, or if you've even heard of World of Warcraft raiding, it's basically raiding for Elder Scrolls Online. The next thing I want to talk about is the justice system, as well as selling stolen goods. So in the Elder Scrolls Online, you are able to steal items that are laying around the world from towns and from other vendors, and just you can take things as you please, but that's going to come at a cost if you obviously get caught. If you don't get caught, then the stolen item goes into your possession, but if you do get caught, you're going to get a bounty. And if you accrue a bounty, guards will stop you and ask you to pay for that bounty, or you could try to flee and run away from the guards. If you accrue enough of a bounty, though, you become kill on sight, and the guards will be able to will try to kill you. You know, whether or not you're stealing stolen goods or you're killing innocent citizens and you're being caught doing so, then you will get a bounty. Now, if you do get a bounty, you can obviously just either die and that will clear it. And I'm not sure if it takes gold from you, but dying will clear your bounty. Or you could just pay it off if you don't want to die. But if you're just wondering, like, well, I have all these stolen goods, what do I do with them? Because if I pay off the guards, they're going to take all my stuff, or if they kill me, they'll take all my stuff. If you want to sell your stolen goods, you're going to want to go to the Outlaws Refuge. You could also go to the Outlaws Refuge and get your bounty paid off as well, if you don't want to do it through the traditional methods of just either dying to a guard or paying it off at the guard when they inevitably try to arrest you. So you're going to come into a place like this. As I said, it was denoted by this symbol on the map. That is the symbol for the fence. So you're going to want to come into an Outlaw's Refuge. There are hidden entrances to them near pretty much every major city. You can find them. And then you're going to want to run all the way to the fence. Let's take a little shortcut here. And you're going to want to come to the fence. And you're going to want to go store. And you have a choice. You could either sell your goods to the fence, or you could launder them and keep them for yourself. A lot of gold making ways involve selling the goods or laundering them and selling them even more for a profit, but thieving is a great way to make money. So you could just steal stuff from around the map and sell them off to the fences as in a way to make some gold. But that is just a little quick recap of the justice system, as well as selling your stolen goods. The next thing I'm going to talk about is player housing. Added in the Homestead update, player houses have been added to the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, for those of you who have played other MMOs, I would equate ESO's housing system to something like RuneScape's, as opposed to something like World of Warcraft's garrison system. In World of Warcraft, the garrison system was an extremely integral part of the game, and without your garrison, you know, you could essentially turn your garrison into a full-fledged town and never need to leave it. But ESO's housing is more like RuneScape's, where the house, for the most part, is purely cosmetic, purely something enjoyable for you to have or for your guild, and you could even not do housing at all, and you will not be really missing out on any content. But if you have some extra gold to burn, or you are a guild leader like myself and want a place for people to hang out in, you can create, or you can purchase a player home. Now, you can get the quest starter for Homestead in the Crown Store. You can go to Quest Starters and you'll see the A Friend in Need, the housing brochure, and you will get your first starter apartment for your faction. The place is tiny. When I first got, I would recommend getting it regardless though, because you can essentially use it as a free Wayshrine, so you could just teleport right to it for basically for free. So that's what I used my house for a lot at first, but now that I have a bigger home, I use it for my guild house. So basically, when you have a player home, you can customize it and put a whole bunch of stuff in it. It can get relatively functional. You could put crafting tables in it. You could put target dummies in it. You could put Mundus stones in it. So that it has that sort of functionality. You could also put a banker. You could put a merchant. All stuff that you could basically buy through the Crown Store or through the in-game store, you could essentially place in your house. So as you can see here, you know, I have some of my mounts chilling in the stables in the back, and I'll kind of go inside and show you what I got at my house, just to kind of show you what you could do. This is for those of you who are interested in possibly purchasing this house eventually. This is Hunting's Palatial Hall. I use it for my Dippin' Dots Guild Hall on PCNA. So I have my banker here, my personal banker that I have my merchant, and then if I go inside the house, if we actually go inside, you can see that, you know, I have some furniture in here, you know, got some chairs, got a nice fire pit, got some statues of bosses that I've killed doing undaunted quests, you know, because you earn collectibles for killing big boss monsters in dungeons, like in the end game dungeon, so you can eventually get like kind of busts that you can put in your house. So as you can see, I kind of just customized my house to have it, you know, be like a nice warm place for everyone to come hang out. But it's not like, you know, the World of Warcraft garrison, where it's super ridiculously functional and you can turn it into a small town. You know, you can have, you know, the merchant, the banker, and the crafting tables in here, but, you know, again, they're only general crafting tables. You can end up customizing them to have one set bonus craftable there, but those are expensive. I'll go over more about that later. But this is kind of just a quick overview of what the player housing in Elder Scrolls Online entails. The next thing I'm going to talk about is combat basics. So I am in my house at my target dummy to kind of go over some very basic combat maneuvers with you guys. So I'm going to be talking from the PC perspective. The only difference between the PC and the console perspective is that console, you're going to be clicking different buttons, but I'm going to just talk about the button presses themselves through the PC perspective. So there are a couple different kinds of attacks you have. You have what is called a light attack. A light attack is simply done by pressing the attack button. So for PC, the default is left click. So you just simply tap the left click button and you will do a light attack. Light attacks are very, very important. Even though they don't deal a lot of damage, they are very important because they generate ultimate, which is the resource used for your class ultimates. Your ultimates don't use anything like Magicka or stamina. They scale off, they are used by ultimate. So doing light attacks will generate ultimate. Now let's say, for example, right, I use a whole bunch of Magicka and I want to regen some Magicka back because I don't really have much left. You can do a heavy attack. Heavy attacks not only generate resources, but they also will generate ultimate. Staff attacks will regenerate Magicka, while bow attacks, melee weapon attacks will restore stamina. Those heavy attacks will restore stamina. Light attacks, like I said, light attacks for both will just give you ultimate, but heavy attacks will restore a resource as well as generate some ultimate. Now, your right click will block. A lot of times if you see an enemy, they'll kind of have some glowing lines coming out of them. If that means they're probably charging up a skill. So you can block and block the skill, so it'll prevent you from either getting stunned or knocked down or something like that. Or you can even interrupt them. If you hold right click or whatever button it is for you guys on consoles, and then click your light attack, you will perform a bash. So you will end up bashing your opponent and interrupting their casted skill. Another thing that you can do is you can dodge roll. So if you see an enemy casting something on you and you want to dodge it, you can either, I believe the default is to double click a directional key, but I have mine bound to a single key, which I highly recommend, so that you can do it on demand and you will dodge the skill. So this is, and then you're not able to do it for a short period of time, but then you could dodge again. And dodging does cost stamina. Blocking, while you block, I'm sure you will notice my regen stops. So while you are blocking, you cannot regenerate stamina while you are blocking with your melee weapons. I believe with staves, when you are blocking with staves, I believe Magicka will stop regenerating. Yes, oh no, still stamina. So whenever you block with any type of weapon, I swore I saw someone say Magicka. But whenever you're blocking with any type of weapon, it will stop generating your stamina. As you can see, my stamina is holding strong at 93% and not shifting because I am blocking. And when you get hit while blocking, it will cost you some stamina. Now, there is a more advanced topic called animation canceling, which I'm going to go over in the next section. It might be a little advanced for some of you newer guys, but I would recommend just watching the section so you can familiarize yourself with what it is so that you can understand what you want to be working towards in the future. Alrighty, so this section is going to cover animation canceling. So I'm going to just go over two very, very basic, I'm going to go over a couple of very basic forms of animation canceling. I'm not going to get into some of the more advanced moves. I'm just going to keep it very basic for this guide and the stuff that you should be worrying about. The first thing is a light attack animation canceling. So a very important part of dealing damage is weaving light attacks in between your skills. Now, you don't just want to use a light attack and then use an ability. Use a light attack and then use an ability. Those animations take forever. You want to animation cancel. So basically what I'm going to do is use my light attack and then cancel the animation with the animation of my ability. So I will light attack and then use concealed weapon. And as you can see, I basically deal the damage instantaneously, but my light attack doesn't go through that full swing, kind of like this. It just does like a half swing, and then my concealed weapon goes off. Now, if you want to do a full combo, if you're trying to, get a little advanced here, and you're trying to cancel even further, you can cancel your skills with a block. So I can use concealed weapon and then block, as you just saw. The full animation didn't go off. It did that time because I messed up. But the full animation won't go off. Now, if you want to combine all three, you can light attack, skill, and then block. I'm not good at that yet, so I'm not going to really be able to demonstrate it all that well. I got it. Hey, there it is. But that's a more advanced topic, so if you want to then cancel your spell animation with a block, that's mostly useful for PvP or if you're in a PvE situation where you feel like you need to block. Now, another way that you can cancel animations, and one that I actually tend to use a lot, is you can cancel spell animations with a weapon swap, and you can also cancel your light attacks with a weapon swap. I generally love to do that if I'm applying buffs to myself. So, for example, if I'm applying siphoning attacks to myself, I don't want to go through that whole animation of sticking my staff in the air. I just press siphoning attacks and then swap weapons. So it's a good way to cancel the animation for that and keep yourself going. So it's a bit of a more advanced topic, and I just wanted to kind of go into some of the more simpler forms of animation canceling. But if you can get into a habit, the most important one I would say to focus on is light attack animation canceling. If you can learn that one, you'll be in a much better place than a lot of other people are when they first start. Because as you can see, you know, if you just do this, see how much slower it is than this? You can get so much more damage off instantly and get a lot more burst onto your target. And because you're going to be weaving in those light attacks, you will be generating ultimate. So this is just something to keep in mind, just to practice while you are questing and while you are killing mobs. And then eventually you will be able to completely weave the animation canceling in while you're in combat. It's something that I'm still getting a little bit used to. It does take time, but in time, with enough practice, I guarantee you will be able to do it too. The next topic I'm going to cover is soul gems. I know this is going to be a very short topic, probably the shortest topic in the video, but it was recommended to me by one of my viewers that I include this in the video because he said that when he first started this, he never even really knew about these and we're actually getting rid of them and not using them appropriately. When you get soul gems, you want to save all of these in your bags. You never really want to get rid of these because they're extremely important. Soul gems are used to fully charge your weapons of any level. So like, for example, right, my enchant on my greatsword, I have a weapon damage enchant. So whenever, you know, I have a chance to make it so that I gain weapon and spell damage. And as you can see, that blue bar is a little bit depleted. So if I wanted to charge it up, I could right click my weapon, go charge, select my soul gem, and it would charge it back up to full. Without my soul gem, if this enchant runs out, I'm no longer getting that weapon damage enchant because it's run out. Another very important thing, and arguably more important, is that it's used to revive yourself. If you die for some reason and you don't want to teleport all the way back to a Wayshrine, you can use a soul gem to revive at your location, so your guy will just kind of stand back up. Your soul will kind of wander around for a little bit, and then your body will reform around your soul. So if you do not have these soul gems, you will not be able to do it. And you don't want, no one wants to be that guy that doesn't have any soul gems and constantly needs to be revived. So whenever you're getting these, always save them. You get them from doing dungeons, you get them from completing dungeons and the Undaunted mail that you get. So always save these and stockpile them so that you are never without them. The next thing I'm going to go over is consumables and quickslots. Consumables are an extremely important part of this game, whether it be potions or food. Now, for example, food here, usually done by the provisioning tree, gives your character passive buffs. So as you can see here on my character, this is what my stats look like. So you can see my Magicka recovery is like 1065, my health is 13k, and my Magicka is 33k. But if I use my, if I use my food buff here, do I have to be out of this menu? I guess so. If I use my food buff here, my Magicka recovery goes all the way up to 1600, my health goes up to about 17,500, and then my Magicka goes all the way up to 37.5k. So buying the right kind of food, you can really choose how your character's stats get augmented and how you can give yourself some passive buffs. Now, those are usually used out of combat, and as you can see by the top left, I'm going to have that buff for about 2 hours. But if you want to use stuff in combat, you're going to need to be looking for potions. And those are activatable by my, I think that's a word, by my Q button. I have my potions bound to Q. Now, as you can see, these are my quick slots, so I can quickly, in combat, choose between whether or not I want to use these potions, or I want to deploy a trebuchet, or I want to use my banker, or my merchant. I wouldn't use these in combat. Obviously, these would be used out of combat, but it allows you to quickly change between items that are just basically usable. So, for example, if we go into my quick slot menu, done by pressing Q, I can basically drag and drop stuff into these quick slots. Now, potions are usable in combat, and getting the right type of potion is very, very helpful. While you're leveling, I would recommend just having, you know, some Magicka, some health, and some stamina potions on you at all times. Once you get to the end of the game, that's when you want to worry about having the most optimal potion for your build and making sure that you're getting all the buffs that you need and having the right resources restored. But for the purposes of leveling, I would just make sure that you have some sort of potion quick slotted at all times. They scale up as you level, so you can get newer and newer potions. And if you have any food in your bag, you know, use it, obviously, and give yourself that little passive buff. I don't think you need to absolutely go out of your way to get food while you're leveling. That's just my opinion. this is definitely more of like an end game thing that you have to have food when you're at the end game. You know, you absolutely have to. But, you know, obviously if you stumble across food while you're going throughout the world, by all means keep it and use it to keep yourself up. But I personally would not go out of my way to purchase it while you're leveling. Once you hit CP 160 though, definitely make sure that you have a food buff on yourself at all times and that you are utilizing potions inside of combat, because they are extremely important. The next thing I'm going to talk about is buffs and debuffs. This is a very, very big topic, so I want to make sure that I can do it enough justice. So, starting with debuffs. Debuffs are essentially the opposite of buffs. They are harmful effects that you put on your opponent. So, for example, we can see I have Crippling Grasp, which basically will deal magic damage over time onto my enemy. So, if I put Crippling Grasp on my enemy, you can see in the center of my screen there that it is counting down. So that means that my enemy, and you can see in the combat text, is taking dot damage, and that is a debuff. Very, very simple. But the more complicated of the topics is buffs, because there are two types of buffs in the game. There are major buffs, and there are minor buffs. Major buffs are basically larger, how do I explain this? They're like larger buffs. So for example, you get Major Expedition, increases your movement speed by 30%. But if, for example, I got Minor Expedition, it would only be like 8%, you know? And then something like, you could get Major Protection or Minor Protection. Like, say, Minor Vitality increases your healing received by 8%, but if it was Major Vitality, it would be probably something like 20%. You can only have one major and minor buff of the same type on you. So I can't have 27 major vitalities on me or 29 minor vitalities on me. I can only have one minor vitality and one major vitality. You cannot have more than one. I believe I have this correct. So this is extremely important when building your character, okay, guys? This is very, very, very important because you don't want to have, let's say, 3 abilities that give you major brutality. That is, it's so much overlap and completely unnecessary. You also don't want, you know, 5 abilities that give you minor vitality. You don't need it. You want to try to optimize as many buffs as you can get on your character as possible. So, for example, you know, I make sure that, you know, I have minor vitality on my restoration bar where I want to be healing myself, but I have major brutality on my damage bar to make sure that I'm giving my weapon damage that 20% buff while I'm playing. So that's why you want to always make sure that you're optimizing your buffs as much as you physically can. They're an extremely important part of the game. And if I know this is a little bit more of an in-depth topic, so if you do have any more questions, you can ask them below. But that is basically the gist of how major and minor buffs work, because it's the same thing with debuffs, right? Major Defile reduces the effectiveness of healing done to them by 30%. They can't have 16 major defiles on them. You can only have up to 1. So that is how major and minor buffs work. The next thing I'm going to talk about is player versus player. So PvP content. You have 2 types of PvP in Elder Scrolls Online. You have Cyrodiil PvP and Battleground PvP. I'm going to go over Battleground PvP first because it's a little more straightforward. So Battleground PvP is simply 4v4v4. You can play with any member of any alliance of any level. You guys can all queue for BGs. I don't know if there's a minimum level for it. I don't know if you have to be like level 10 or level 15 or something. But you can pretty much almost at any level queue for BGs. You know, you can be like level 20 and queue with someone who's CP 600. You know, you guys can play together. And it's 4v4v4. There are, like I said, there are 3 total teams, and anybody from any alliance any level can go on to any of those teams. And there are 3 types of game modes, and you can basically are going to get assigned that game mode randomly. Either Domination, you know, hold the point, Team Deathmatch, which is just go and kill all the other enemies, and then Capture the Flag, which involves you going out, capturing your enemy's flag, and then bringing it back to your base, but your flag needs to be at your base when you capture it. So that is basically the simple part of Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds are super, super fun. They are the small-scale PvP for this game. But if you like large-scale PvP, big, gigantic battles, you can look at the Alliance War. Now, there are several different campaigns in the Alliance War. Before I even get into that, this is where your faction matters, okay? I can't play with someone on the Aldemaric Dominion. I have to play with people on the Daggerfall Covenant. I cannot play with people on the Ebonheart Pact. This is the only time in this game where your alliance matters, and that is for the Alliance War. So, I would recommend going into Cyrodiil in doing the base tutorial inside of Cyrodiil. It's going to give you the very, very, very basics about, you know, the difference between keeps and outposts and resources and scrolls. It'll give you all the basics behind that. You know, you're going to learn stuff like, you know, when you're capturing a keep, if you take all the resources around the keep, your enemies won't be able to teleport to said keep using the transmutation lines, because that is how you get around the map. Just, you're going to want to do that very basic tutorial to learn the basics of being inside of Cyrodiil. But even more basic than that, they are broken up into campaigns. So you can basically set a campaign as your home campaign, and basically that's just where this is like the part of the server that you're going to be playing on and where you're going to get scored. So there is a 30-day non-champion campaign. So this is 30 days, no champion points allowed, anyone of any level. After 30 days, the score for the campaign, all of the alliance scores will reset, and then a new campaign will start, or a new 30-day increment of that campaign will start. 30-day standard has champion points active. 7-day non-champ is just the same thing as 30-day non-champ, but says it's 7 days where the points reset. And then below level 50 is you have to be below level 50 in order to go into this, in order to go into this campaign. So I would recommend that if you're below level 50 and you want to play BGs, that you do go into the lower level campaign, because it's going to be harder playing against much higher level opponents, because they will have more gear and more abilities and just more passives in like something like the 30-day non-champ as opposed to the below level 50. So if you are a lower level and you do want to try PvP, I would recommend doing this campaign. But then once you hit CP 160, you're going to want to do the non-champ campaign. You're not going to want to do the standard campaign until you're at least close to CP cap. Otherwise, you're gonna get punched in the face. But this is what the scoring looks like, and you have certain bonuses that you get for holding, you know, a certain number of enemy keeps, or if you hold Elder Scrolls, you'll get passive bonuses inside of Cyrodiil. And again, whoever has the most points at the end of the 30 days will win. And then you have Emperorship. So as you can see right now, the Aldemir Dominion has the Imperial Keep. So they, I believe, currently hold the Emperor. So if you go onto the Aldemir Dominion Emperor, this guy, Purus Vitus, at the time of recording this, is going to be the Emperor. So basically, to get Emperor, you have to go to Cyrodiil, and you have to control all of the keeps around the Imperial City, and you have to have the highest score for your faction in that campaign. So if you have the most points for your faction in that campaign, while you hold all of the keeps around the Imperial City, you will be crowned Emperor, and that is a very, very lofty goal that only some of the best PvPers have achieved, and it does take a lot of time to do it. It's a huge time sink, but, you know, it is something that if you really, really love large-scale PvP, it is an end goal that you can try to set for yourself. The Emperors get a title, they get some passive bonuses. I also believe they get a skill line. They at least I know they used to. I don't know if they still do, but that is what they get. So that is just a brief overview of the PvP systems in Elder Scrolls Online. Alrighty, so the last thing I'm going to talk about for this guide is crafting. Now, if you want to learn the very, very basics of crafting, what I recommend doing is going and getting yourself certified. Now, the way that you get yourself certified in all the different crafting is by going to the Fighters Guild, as shown by this symbol, or the Mages Guild, as shown by this symbol. Going to the Fighters Guild will allow you to learn the very basics behind blacksmithing, woodworking, and clothing, aka medium and light armor creation. And then the Mages Guild is where you're going to learn provisioning, which is the creation of food and drinks, alchemy, which is for potions, and then enchanting, which is obviously for enchantments. You will learn the extreme basics behind those, so I recommend going and doing those to learn those. Now, once you are certified, you're allowed to do these things called writs, which are basically daily quests that you can do where you have to go and you have to craft some stuff, as shown on here on the writ board. And you could basically craft some stuff. You go, you turn it in, you get a bunch of inspiration points, which is the version of experience that you gain for crafting lines. You don't gain experience for crafting lines, you gain inspiration points. So they'll give you some inspiration points, and then, you know, you'll get like a little crate of stuff. And then, yeah, the quest will be done. You could do those once per day. And then once you are max level of crafting, you can do master crafting writs, which allows you to gain even more rewards because, you know, you're not gaining inspiration points anymore. Now, one of the most important topics when it comes to crafting is research. All right? Research is something you want to get started early on with your character. Now, the way gear is in the game, so I'll show you a piece of gear, for example. We have my chest piece that has a multi-effect enchantment on it. That is an enchant, but it has impenetrable. Increases my critical resistance by 250, and this item takes 50% less durability damage. That is what is called a trait. Now, let's say I want to craft a piece of gear that has the impenetrable trait on it, okay? So let's say I'll show this example. It's a heavy armor piece. I want to craft a piece of gear that has a heavy armor impenetrable trait on it. What I need to do is go to a blacksmithing station, go to research, apparel, and my chest. And I would have to research impenetrable, which you can see I already have it researched. But for example, you know, for a piece I don't have, if I wanted to make infused heavy armored boots, okay, I would have to research infused. Okay, so basically if I have to have a piece of gear with infused on it, researching would effectively, it would destroy the piece of gear, but in return, I will be able to craft gear that is infused. Now, why do I say this is very important to get started on early, even if you don't plan on crafting initially? The reason why I say this is important is because research timers get exponentially longer. Like, the first timer is like 6 hours, and then it's 12 hours, and then it's a day, and then it's 3 days, and then it's 5 days, and then it's a week, and then it's 2 weeks, and then it's a month. Like, it gets exponentially longer, so you always want to be saving gear that you can research in your bank so that you can continually have your research timers going. If you play on PC, I would recommend either Trait Buddy or Research Assistant to help keep track of your items so that you can easily see what traits you have researched. So as you can see right here, I can look at, you know, what stuff do I have researched and what stuff do I not have researched. Now, you're probably also asking, well, what else is important about research besides researching traits? Now, that is for creating sets. If you want to create an item set, so let's say, for example, I'll show you my character again. We have Perennial's Cuirass. If I wear 2 pieces, I gain that much health. If I wear 3, I gain stamina recovery. If I wear 4, I gain magic recovery. And if I wear 5, my weapon and spell damage become the highest of the 2 values. Now, in order to gain these, I have to wear multiple pieces of the Perennial's Aptitude set. So as you can see, I have a chest, shoulders, gloves, and then boots. And then my weapon are all Perennials. Now, Perennials was crafted for me, though. In order to craft this, the crafter needed to know 9 traits for each piece of gear. So they needed to have research to 9 different traits of for great swords. They needed to research 9 different traits for shoulders, for medium shoulders. They needed to research 9 different traits for a heavy chest in order to create this armor at that set forge. So that is why research is extremely important. You also need to go to a specific forge. For example, like the Perennial's Cuirass forge is in the Gold Coast, which is where the Dark Brotherhood DLC is located. Because as you can see, you know, we have these regular crafting tables, like this is a woodworking station, you know. I could create gear at this woodworking station, but it would just be, you know, a regular maple bow. If I went to the Perennial's crafting station and created a maple bow, the specific crafting table, it would be a Perennial's maple bow, and it would count towards that set bonus. And that is why those are extremely important. Now, you want to not worry really much about those, though, until you hit end game. You know, once you're CP 160, then you can really worry about set bonuses. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I just wanted to explain why researching was so important, how set bonuses worked, how set the forges worked, and all that good jazz. Now, one last thing with crafting. When you're crafting, you can essentially affect how your gear looks. Like, I'm wearing a costume right now, so it covers up all my gear. But you can change how a piece of gear looks when you craft it through this stuff called motifs. So I have the style. I know the Breton style right now, so I could create stuff in the Breton style if I so wanted to. Or I could get other style material, because this is called a piece of style material, and create gear that's in different styles. Now, in order to create gear that's in those different styles, though, I need to learn the motif. So the motif essentially it's like a book that you can buy and use, and you'll learn how to create high elf armor. Okay, you'll learn how to create high elf armor. So you learn the motif on how to create high elf armor, you go out and you buy the style material for the high elves, and then you come to a crafting station, and then you're going to craft, you know, let's say an Inferno staff using how much maple I ever want to use with that, you know, high elf crafting material. And then if I so, you know, want to add a trait to it, I can add a trait to it, and then boom, you will create the piece of gear. Now, you will learn more about refining materials during your certifications. Now, when it comes to deconstruction is the best way to level enchanting, because you can deconstruct glyphs. It is the best way to level woodworking. You can deconstruct bows, staves, and shields. It is the best way to level blacksmithing. You can deconstruct metal weapons and armor, and it's the best way to level up clothing, which is light armor and medium armor. That is the best way to level all 4 of those skill lines. The best way to level alchemy and provisioning is by sheerly through creating stuff. Creating stuff for the other, 4 or 5 professions, not worth it. It's not worth it. The other 4, excuse me, the other 4. It's you gain such minimal inspiration. You're better off just doing it through sheer deconstruction. And as long as you're running dungeons while you level, you will gain plenty of gear to deconstruct. Don't even worry about that. You will get plenty of gear to deconstruct. So that is why there's a fine balance between knowing what gear you want to save for your research and knowing what gear you can safely deconstruct to help level up your skills. So that is why you want to, if possible, if at all possible, get an add-on to help you manage all of this stuff. The last thing I'm going to go over for this section, though, actually, I don't know if I said last thing before, but it's last thing now, is improvement. You can improve pieces of gear. So, okay, so I can make this bow of martial knowledge. I can make it an epic bow of martial knowledge. I would need to have a certain number of this, I forget what this is called right here, but the more I have of it, the higher chance I have to upgrade the weapon. Because when you're upgrading a weapon, you have to use multiple of you know, one of these 4 materials, depending on what level you're going up to. If it's normal to find to superior, superior to epic, or epic to legendary, you need to use more and more of those materials so that you gain a 100% chance to not have your item be destroyed. Because if you just create a normal item and then use one of these dwarven oils, that's like either like a 10 or 20% chance for your item to be improved. Otherwise, it'll just be destroyed. So you want to use more and more of these so that you are able to successfully improve your weapon. Because, you know, it would really suck to have an epic weapon and be like, YOLO, let's try to make it legendary, and then have it break. You know, that's not what you want. You don't want to lose it. So you want to make sure that you can get as many of these as possible so that you're able to improve your equipment. Alright guys, that is it for my complete beginner guide. I really hope that this helped you all out. I went through everything in the game, and it actually ended up being more in-depth than I expected. When I first started making the guide, I was like, you know, I'm going to stay pretty general and stuff, but the more and more I started talking, the more I wanted to just go in deep with stuff and make sure that you guys would be able to get almost everything that you possibly would need to know to get started in this game from this guide. I've had a great time with Elder Scrolls Online since switching to it. There's a lot to it, and it's just, honestly, it's just been a lot of fun. I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this guide. I put almost a week's worth of time into making this, so I really, really hope it showed, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you appreciated this guide, and if it helped you in any capacity, I would really appreciate if you gave it a like. And of course, guys, to see more content like this from me in the future, please subscribe, as well as hit the little bell next to the subscribe button so that you can be notified of when I output content. I also stream here on YouTube, so clicking the little bell will make sure that you guys are notified of when I go live. So thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I'm Dottz Gaming, and have a great day. I'll see you all next time.